quick run through. We'll go ahead and start the recording, but we're super happy to have Jamie here with us today. I'm lucky enough to work with Jamie here at Atumos. She is the Portland mug leader, has been doing that for a long time. Is just a really good expert in our community. So we're super happy to have her here with us today. We'll go ahead and turn it over to Jamie.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So as Natalie just said, hello. I'm super excited to be with you guys all today. Thank you, Jackie and Natalie, for having me. My name is Jamie Breidenbach. I've been in the mop space for quite a while, it feels like. I'm currently a manager of consulting services at Atumos and have been consulting for 5 years. Prior to consulting, I was on the brand side at an enterprise level organization doing marketing operations for 11 years. So a little bit under my belt. I'm located just outside of Portland, Oregon, and I have the pleasure of leading the PDX month with Courtney Cara from Mustang Martech. So if you are in the Portland area, please find our chapter page for the mugs, and please come to our events. They're a lot of fun. Outside of work, I spend most of my time with my husband and 2 kids, Everett and Olivia. Some of my favorite hobbies when I'm not doing mops is playing any kind of game or activity. Some of my favorite moments are creating games out of thin air and laughing for hours. Otherwise, you can find me like a horizontal hermit crab underneath my weighted blanket, reading a book, or having garage beers with our growing community of network or neighborhood friends. Some of my favorite MOPS projects include migrations and implementations, and some of you are probably like gross, but they're so much fun for me when they're planned and executed with a killer A team. Other than that, I have found the most enjoyment out of architecting or re-architecting lifecycle models and lead flows. Really anything that entails organization and creating efficient and scalable operations is my jam. All right, so today's topic, I'll be talking about tips for maintaining a healthy Marketo instance. And the way that I like to think about maintenance for Marketo is similar to my own lifestyle and maintaining my own health and wellness. It's something that's super important for living a long, fulfilling, and enjoyable life. Maintenance isn't necessarily fun, but when we keep up with our maintenance of our mental, emotional, and physical health, it creates a pathway that keeps ourselves in a good state of being. With maintenance, we can stay ahead of major illnesses or issues that can come up from not dedicating the right amount of time or the mix of flags that are most critical for us to pay attention to. Maintenance in Marketo is the same way. When Marketo is healthy, processes are running more efficiently, it leads to better data hygiene, it leads to better insights and learnings, and ultimately resulting in better decisions being made for your business. Okay, so now you're like, all right, cool. How do we get started? The first thing that I want you to do, step 1, is to give yourself some grace and be kind to yourself. MOPS has a tough, thankless job, and it can be really difficult to feel like you're making an impact, but trust me, you are, and you're doing great. So please keep it up. The next thing that we're going to do is create a maintenance task list. And I already have this for you, so you all will get a copy after this call. So, all right, we got 2 steps done, and now we're feeling good about it. Next up is that we're going to start creating habits, and we do this by starting small. Change cannot happen overnight. If you're in a position where you're creating these habits, it's going to take a little bit longer. That's totally okay. Nobody is holding you like a moth to a flame. What's most important is just dedicating to those habits. So if you stick to it soon enough, you'll find yourself on that path to success. And if you find yourself struggling, go back to step 1, give yourself some grace, and just be kind to yourself. Excuse me. As a part of today's meeting, I'm going to be breaking down some of the key habits of maintenance into regular cadence of daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual tasks. These are all suggestions and recommendations. So from the list that I provide to you at the end of this meeting, you can take what you like and what's going to help you the most and leave the rest. Just try your best to follow through with what's on the schedule. So with that, we're going to jump into it. So starting off with daily maintenance tasks, these are the things that you can think of like a daily walking goal or taking your vitamins and minerals every morning. This is essentially putting your attention on critical flags that could indicate major issues if left ignored for too long. I have a few key items listed here that include checking your system error notifications. These would be the system notifications you receive from Marketo daily, and eventually, if you are addressing them, they shouldn't come through daily anymore. But these would be the things like campaign or webhook failures, web services errors, issues with native launch point integrations or the CRM sync errors. Also in admin, the two additional places I seek out to review daily are the web services area and the CRM status and sync errors tabs underneath the integrations area. The CRM status is pretty self-explanatory, so I won't cover that, but checking on your daily quota or past week of API calls is a super helpful indicator to understand what services are using calls and how many to forecast if any changes need to be made with integrations. Next, have a look at your campaign queue at least once a day. For higher volume instances, I recommend taking a look at least 2 to 3 times during a business day. Do this, when you first log on for the day, and then choose a couple midpoints of your morning or afternoon once a majority of your marketing campaigns have executed and you're monitoring the highest peak production times of the business day. This can lead to some helpful insights and issues you might not be aware of that you can create a project for and address in a longer period of time. And something that I find most helpful is checking for data hygiene issues. I think we've all found ourselves in that fireman suit, with a water hose, trying to put out fires left and right from poor data hygiene. I know you all have seen that meme, the "this is fine" meme, everything's on fire. It's really not. Nobody should be in that situation. It's something that can cause a lot of problems and a lot of headaches for ourselves. I have a list of examples of people performance reports that I use in the task list that you'll all receive. But what I find most superb about using those people performance reports is that you can build these and then subscribe yourself to them so you can get a delivery of this information in your inbox on a daily basis. Or even better, if you have Slack, you can set up a dedicated MOP Slack channel and have those reports sent to that Slack channel. And that way you can easily gather and collaborate with other MOPS folks on your team to review and highlight issues before anything becomes like a major news headline within your organization to address. Moving on to weekly maintenance. Think of this as if you're like meal planning or like a weekly therapy session. These would be maintenance items that don't require the daily frequency and could be done on a weekly or a bi-weekly cadence, depending on volume. During the weekly time is also when you tackle resolutions for items flagged in the daily maintenance review. That requires a bit of a heavier lift to complete. Some of the items listed to pay attention to would be reviewing deliverability stats and bounce reports, particularly paying attention to spam trap flags or anything that might cause issues with your deliverability stats. Something else recommended would be resolving any critical data hygiene issues. I'm not one that likes to recommend Band-Aid type solutions to a bigger problem, but sometimes you need to stop the bleeding to gain some composure and really think through what you're trying to fix and how best to resolve it so it doesn't continue to be a problem in the future. And depending on your reporting structure, and if you have a dedicated team that's ingesting and reviewing marketing campaign results on a regular basis, this would be something to address weekly or bi-weekly. You definitely don't want to get to, like a month's end report or a quarter's end reporting time period and come to realize that a form process was broken or records had failed to sync to your CRM campaign for one reason or another. And if you're using the Marketo and Salesforce native program sync, this is definitely an area that can cause silent errors that you'll definitely want to stay ahead of prior to downstream impacts occurring. I have the idle trigger campaign cleanup listed under weekly maintenance simply because you're only given a week to address it. These system notification errors occur every 6 months, and it's a really great time to review what trigger campaigns are active and dormant, meaning they're active, they're turned on, but there's no activity happening in them. Another great tip here would be to create a campaign activity report where you could spot check campaign volume across folders or programs, selecting up to 1,000 campaigns to report on volume of people processing through and when that last activity occurred. This can be helpful to uncover a failed process or highlight if there's just too much volume processing through your campaigns for a specific time period. Next one, super duper important. If part of your marketing and sales process is the handoff with marketing qualified leads to sales, any record that has been left unworked after a service level agreement timeframe between those two teams definitely warrants investigating and understanding the why behind it. So creating a closed loop feedback mechanism as part of your sales process is going to help keep things productive and working well. And then here's where that next bullet comes into play, is where you'll want to set up time and meet with your sales op team and or your CRM admin on a weekly basis to foster a working relationship and create alignment between the two cross-functional teams. Both teams impact each other, and we want to avoid the negative, disgruntled side of that, because nobody wins in that scenario. You just end up creating more work for each other, and you're just feeling pretty miserable at the same time. Okay. Moving right along. So I combined the monthly and the quarterly maintenance items just on this slide, just to hit on a few key items, but they are separate in the list that we'll get to after the call. You could envision, these maintenance items as those splurge, self-care bucket of things that you love to do. For me, that's getting a facial or a massage, or planning a long weekend trip away to rejuvenate and push a reset button on myself. You'll notice that the amount of items begins to drop even more, because by this point, your daily and weekly tasks are habitually smooth sailing, and you have time to be more strategic, incorporate learnings, or tackle more involved items with your system. But again, getting to this point doesn't happen overnight, so give yourself some grace, and slowly creating these habits is where you'll find the success. So what's happening here? Well, I always recommend taking a peek at Marketo's release notes, or allowing yourself some time to learn something new in order to improve your own operations. There are so many great MOPS communities and individuals out there in our small yet large MOPS world that this is a great opportunity to either keep yourself fresh and intrigued with something new, or finding a better way of doing something, or networking and building your arsenal of support with people that just get it. It's always nice to have some people that you can go to and vent a little bit, or brainstorm, or just get some new ideas from. And some things that I really enjoy getting to do when reaching this larger time frame of performing is performing some analysis and taking some learnings back to the business that can help drive better decision making. So when looking at a database or like evaluating the buyer's journey, typically, the first goal for myself is just to understand who's there. Who are the individuals that are coming up in this group that I'm reviewing? Some quick ways to get started with this is just by looking at the volume in your database, seeing what the trend of creation is, what channels are driving creation, and understand if that's expected or unexpected. Then you can begin to start adding some layers of like marketability or nurtures or various engagements on top of that to understand touches and whether some audiences are being communicated to more than others. These examples I'm providing, this is really just skimming the surface of what's possible. It can be a really great brain exercise, and also showcasing some examples of strategic work that can help put you in a position to have a seat at the table with other business leaders. And then the remaining items on this list are what I call brain breaks, or sometimes monkey work. They don't require a ton of thought, but it's a really quick and easy way to get that dopamine flowing and get you jazzed for the next big thing to come. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I've gone through just some really intensive analysis or project work, and at the end of it, I was like, I just want to do some cleanup. Just let me do something, let me delete something. It's something that I love so much, and this is kind of that push of that self-reset button. But joking aside, these are the types of maintenance tasks that are actually so important too, not only for yourself and others using Marketo, but having the ability to quickly tidy and get something accomplished means it's not as big of a lift when it really comes time for it to be necessary. Okay, we are on the final slide. But now let's talk about annual maintenance. And here's where we're going to do like that annual well check appointment and planning and preparing for the year or the years ahead. The first two bullets are kind of a joke, but also not at the same time. You'd be surprised how often these get missed, and they are super important. So the first one with your integrations, make sure that you're generating fresh access tokens. And this means that you're looking at the other systems that are connected to your Marketo instance and have some kind of permissions for to perform jobs to be done. So refreshing these access points keeps your data safe, and it doesn't allow integrations to be forgotten about. All in all, just don't risk your data. Next, make sure you're changing that copyright year on your design assets. And if you weren't aware, the easiest low-tech way to do this is by creating a top-level folder token that can be inherited across your programs and design assets, where you only need to update it in one spot for the following year. Just a quick, easy-peasy thing to do. The next one, this can be a little bit dicey, depending on your business structure, but still absolutely recommend doing it. And that's archiving programs that are no longer needed, or things that, looking back 1 to 2 years, depending on volume, just something just to get it out of sight. This can help with overall instance performance within the UI when you're using search functionality across various places in Marketo. And it really keeps users from reviving old bad things that should never be used. It just makes things so much cleaner and more straightforward for all of your users within your system. And if you are able, I absolutely recommend setting aside time and budget to conduct a full Marketo audit and a report out of it. I'm not going to toot my horn. I know I'm a consultant and I do this, but consulting agencies, these are a super helpful and efficient lever to pull in this kind of scenario. Sometimes being in your own system day in and day out, you simply get tapped, you're burnt out, and you hit your limit in terms of possibilities and generating new, better ways of doing things. So seeking out a consultant or an agency to get some fresh eyes on your instance can be a huge burden lifted in a way for you to use your time more wisely. And if you're not doing this already, set up an annual business review meeting with your Adobe CSM. Please don't wait until renewal timeframe and have that be the first time that you're having a conversation with them. And if you are on the higher end of size or volume, I'd even recommend doing this on a quarterly or a semi-annual basis. They can provide some really good insights or highlight problematic areas that you just might not have realized was happening. And lastly, let's create your marketing roadmap, marketing operations roadmap. Have this be your North Star. It's okay if you go off path a bit. You can always course correct throughout the year. The key here, though, is that you have a plan, you make a plan, and you know how to execute against your plan. If you don't dedicate the time, your time, to something, then someone else will take your time away from you. And it's typically not where you can have the most impact for your business. So all with that to say, that's it for me. I just want to say thank you again to Natalie and Jackie for having me. If anybody has any questions, I'll gladly take them and try to answer to the best of my ability in this capacity. But otherwise, I'd love to connect with you. Please find me on LinkedIn, find me in the MOPS communities around Slack. I'm around, but I'll stop sharing for now.
Awesome. Yeah, if you want to go off of mute and ask Jamie any questions, go ahead. If you want to put them in the chat, that's great too. Someone had the idea to attend a mug on their weekly/quarterly list. I love that. I'm trying to scan through what we have here so far. I know someone asked a question about where to go to start networking with other MOPs, and some of us have been responding. But outside of like MOPS Pros or Marketing Nation, are there other places, Jamie, where you go to network with other MOPS people?
There's a few other groups. There's a Wizard of MOPS Slack community as well. And then also me in particular, there's a Women in Revenue Slack community that's available. That can be super helpful for a variety of reasons, not even just marketing operations, but those are a few of the other areas that I go to. But primarily the mug has been where I've made a ton of connections, and I always try to go to other virtual mugs that are available anytime I can make those. So it's always nice to just see other people and just hear what other people are doing.
That's awesome. I know
Mhm.
Sarah or Christine asked, where can we find more information on how to create a marketing operations roadmap?
Ooh, uh, top of mind, I don't have a specific site. I know there's quite a few influencers, but not more like thought leaders out in the space that have a lot of this information. I think the MoPros or marketingoperations.com would be, I think they have a lot of helpful resources for doing some of this stuff as well. So that might be an area to take a look at.
Well,
Ooh,
lots of good
okay.
questions in the chat. I'll let you
I
want to
know.
grab what you want to answer next.
I I ignored it for a while. Let's see here. Any tips for new Marketo managers on how to get acquainted with their instance? Uh, you know, sometimes when I get into a new instance, the first week, first few weeks or so, really just understanding the setup. What integrations do we have? What's happening? Kind of looking at those the daily tasks. Some of the things that I have listed out there. Just building some reports on data and just understanding what workflows or what operational programs you have. Um, just kind of doing a quick checklist of just going down that would be the best place to get started. And then also doing, if you can, that lead flow audit kind of helps to paint a picture or a story of what are all the operational processes that are happening to a person, what's the time frame that's happening, how often are things syncing, what kind of sync errors do you have, how is your sync user set up, all those types of things would be kind of the first quick items to take a look at. Oh, Christina, thank you. The Idle Sugar campaign is actually quarterly. Thank you so much for that. I typically only get it once every 6 months. But thank you. I didn't know that. But yeah, you could look at the activity or the campaign activity and kind of get the same thing, or just get an understanding of what potentially could be qualified for that Idle Sugar campaign notification when it's ready to go. Yeah. Let's see here. When you mentioned monthly buyer's journey analysis, could you give us some examples? So the buyer's journey analysis, so that's essentially kind of like the lead flow analysis, looking at based on what people are engaging with and kind of taking a layer on top of other engagement programs that you have. Or it also kind of just depends on what organization you have. If you're doing, like various touch points or promotions, if it's more of a batch, or if you do actually have a strategy around building communications, building a story, getting people to move or progress through a life cycle model. That's essentially where that buyer's journey analysis would point out, like how often does it take a person to get from anonymous to known to hit to MQL and so on and so forth. Just kind of taking a look at various milestones within that journey, figuring out what's happening there. Yeah. Let's see here.
I
Any other
think we might
questions?
have gotten them all.
This was a lot of people. Thank you all so much for coming. I was not expecting this.
We can do a last call for questions here. And then every month, I should have led with this, we do a drawing for Amazon gift cards. So Jackie, I don't know if you've had a chance to pull names yet, but we'll be giving away 3 Amazon gift cards. But you have to stick around until we let you know so that you can claim your card. So give us just a minute here and we'll do that. Okay, a couple more questions coming in too. So is there any way we can put an end date on triggers? Oops.
Sorry, I went on mute.
Okay.
That's a great question. I know that Marketo's introduced some new features around like expiring local assets, but I don't know if triggers is in there. It was something that was available in Sky. I just don't know if they ever passed it over into the
I don't
new
think they did. That's a shame.
the
Hopefully it's
new
somewhere on the
yeah.
roadmap.
That'd be great. I'm actually logging in real quick just to double check, make sure if anybody else knows.
I don't
Yeah,
think there
just give me
is from
one
what I've
second.
heard, but that would be really helpful.
Ooh, tips
Oh, you
for a
can.
MOPS team of one. It, you know, a MOPS team of one, it is extremely difficult. I think the best thing that I can provide in terms of advice is to just prioritize. You cannot do everything, you cannot tackle everything. And it's yeah, it's a really, really tough position to have. But I think one thing that you can do is prepare or build some of these views to be able to deliver it to you quickly, so you're not having to go seek it out or do a lot of work trying to just find an answer, business answer, try to anticipate what those might be or what would be important to know, and plan for that ahead of time. But yeah, just prioritizing. You're not going to be able to do everything, and that's just what reality is, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think too, like the communities we shared at the beginning of the Q&A can be really helpful. You know, you might think it's just like troubleshooting types of things. If you're not in the communities, it's a lot of really good discussion. You know, if you have questions, if you are, you know, a team of one, you don't have a group or a team to go to. But even just putting it out there, like, have you seen this? Or how do you handle this? Or what tools are people using? There's a lot of good discussion too that can help enable you and I feel a larger part of something, even if you are by yourself at your org.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, Juliana, thanks so much. You can set the expiration date of triggers. Yay.
It's hard to
Let's
remember
make
what's
sure.
coming or what's been done or
I
what
know.
in an old iteration.
Check those release notes. uh, you know, they are happening a bit more now in like a monthly cadence, which is nice. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that.
Awesome. And it looks like Jackie went ahead and pulled our winners. So check the chat there. We have Kay, Bill, and I don't want to say it wrong, Emergit. So please respond in the chat with your, or just DM Jackie in the chat what your email address is so she can get you your gift card. And we have a couple of minutes left. Oh, here's another question. How do you evaluate the effectiveness of segmentations, Jamie? That's a big one.
Yeah, yeah, it is. The first thing that I would say to do is an audit, understanding what's in there and what is the criteria of making up those individuals. If you find that a majority of people are falling into default, it's probably not a good segmentation, or you have a lot of people in your database that just don't fit the criteria you're looking for. So yeah, there's also I would take a look at also usability of the segmentation. If people have asked for some of these segments, you know, they wanting the exclusivity of putting people into specific segments there, and it's not getting used. It's not getting used for reports. It's not getting used for dynamic content or, you know, anything like that. It's probably not an effective segmentation. So segmentations are one of the things that is a pretty big burden on Marketo, very similar to trigger campaigns. They're always on, they're always processing, even if, you know, there's data value changes and it's not something that's going to impact the segment, it's constantly evaluating for that segmentation. So it's one thing that is a big processing sucker. So that's kind of another thing that I would say to evaluate the effectiveness of segmentations if you're managing a database and you're constantly seeing segmentations being in your campaign queue, it's probably not an effective use of that segmentation and you could do something else with it. So yeah, segmentations, can't delete them. Yeah, recommendations on repurposing. Definitely. I mean, it just depends on probably what the segmentation was used for. If it was used in an email that's already gone out and you don't need it anymore and nobody's looking at it, delete it. Delete the email program, delete the segmentation. That's not an effective use of time, because if it's still active, it's still using processing power and it's still being evaluated. So if nobody's paying attention to it, just delete it, get it out of there, clean it up. Probably nobody will. Can't delete the email. Oh, interesting. Is there a reason you can't delete the email?
I guess it's associated by the program,
Oh yeah,
I'm
delete the program.
guessing.
That's me. Delete everything. Just get it out. Nobody's looking. Oh, because the email already went out. Oh, might not be following. Sorry. But yeah, maybe just taking a look at what some of the segmentations are and figure out if there would be a better use. You can always just change the segmentation too. Change the segmentation labels, put it in draft and republish it for something that's more purposeful. Yep.
Awesome. Wow, you covered a lot of ground today, Jamie. So thank you so much for your checklist and everything. As I mentioned at the top of the call, we'll send out the recording and the slide deck. And then also, like I said, Jamie has an awesome checklist PDF that we'll share. So look for all of that to be coming to your inbox soon. We'll email it out, and then our chapter page will also be updated with everything. So be sure not to miss out on all of those cool resources, and definitely stay tuned for our next mug. We're still planning it, but it will be happening sometime later in September or in early October. So thanks, everybody.